Scotland and Italy shook off the cobwebs of Scottish gas in Murrayfield. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Scotland versus Italy, World Cup warm-up game. Both teams picked a mix of established players who you'd expect to be in that squad for the Rugby World Cup and players who are on the fringe who are trying to prove a point and put their hands up for selection. So on this one, Italy, they're on the front foot early on. Bruno and Montione looking pretty lively there. But then Ben Healy puts a lovely kick downfield. Darcy Graham gets to it first. He hacks it on. It goes over the try line, but he can't get there to ground it, but just kind of showed that, that what Healy brings to Scotland compared to the other 10s as well is that, he's a kicking 10. It's his awareness of space behind the opposition and being able to exploit it. From there then, Scotland, they win a penalty because Italy aren't running away. And then just before that, a seagull come down, try to get involved in the action as well. So Scotland decide to kick the penalty into the corner. Italy managed to nick the line out, but then they ground up their own line, so they brought it back, attacking 5-metre scrum to Scotland. Italy win a free at the scrum and they're able to kick clear. Bit of a missed opportunity for Scotland there. Then Menoncello gets pinged for offside and Scotland, they're able to kick it back into the corner. Sweet kick from Healy for that one as well. They managed to maul it to within a few metres. Then they go out to the backs and, basically the maul got halted. They got told to use this to go out to the backs. Healy then cross kicks it into plenty of space behind the try line and Graham is able to collect it and he dots down to score. Healy misses the conversion, but it's 5-0 to Scotland. Italy then, they get a chance to kick a penalty for the corner. They go to the maul. It gets halted well by Scotland. Pretty good maul defence from them there. They then go out to the backs, but they, Scotland are putting pressure on to break down, so Italy go over the top and seal the ball off, and they concede a penalty. I thought Scotland's, defence at the breakdown was very good in around 22, and the likes of Darge were obviously to the fore there as well for that one. From here then, Healy kicks a penalty from his own 22 right to the edge of the Italian 22, and it just shows like he really has got a siege gun of a boot on him, and it's another option for Scotland. Obviously Finn Russell is going to be the starting 10 if fit, and depending on who the opposition are at the Rugby World Cup, but Healy just shows you the different type of game that he can bring to them as well. We then have a mix-up from Scotland. I think basically it was passed back probably to Healy. I think it drops on the floor. Zuliani hacks it forward. He runs after it, doesn't have the pace, gets outpaced by some, few Scottish players, but then nobody can actually claim the ball. It's very slippery and the ball is just kind of, pinballing around, pinging around and ends up over the Scottish try line. Almost ends up in a try, but one of the Scots dive on it. But it is a 5-metre attacking scrum to Italy after that. Italy then win a penalty, but they can't do, they had advantage, couldn't do anything with it. So then they decided to go for the post of the penalty. Allen slots that for 5-3. Scotland, then they start trying to hold on to the ball, but they're frustrated by some decent Italian defence. And then Price tries to, kick over because there is space in behind, but kicks a little bit too long and kicks it out on the full. But, so far it's very competitive from both sides, and it's feeling like, whoever's going to produce those few moments of quality is going to win the game. Scotland then, they have a chance They spread it from a maul just outside of 22. Graham gets on the outside, but he gets tackled into touch by Menoncello. Scotland then nicked the line out and are deep in the Italian 22, but then Italy managed to turn it over with a choke tackle. It's something that Scotland had done a couple of times to Italy earlier in the game, and Italy just, copying that tactic to win the turnover there, making it unplayable, and they get the scrum. They then attack from the back of that scrum. Ioane, he gets it side Darcy Graham, but then there's a tap tackle, brings him down. And I felt like without that, he probably could have been gone. He did have, at the time when he gets tapped, he didn't have support, but there were players coming to support him. But so that could have been a break to actually score a try. So that tap tackle was very important, but still Darcy Graham won't be happy that he skinned them on the outside. They then managed to win a penalty at the scrum. Scotland before this were on top in the scrum, but it kind of went backwards and forwards, especially in this middle period of the game. Allen then kicks a 40 plus metre penalty on the angle to send Italy in front, and that's half time. So half-time score is 6-5 to Italy. First half, the conditions were very wet and slippery, and I think that kind of affected the quality of the game. It did dry out a little bit in the second half, though. Into the second half, then Scotland are applying pressure close to the line. They managed to get over, but they're held up. We come back, though, because they had penalty advantage. Turner then tries to go for the tap, taps the ball. As he brings it up, then it's still slippery, squirts it out of his hands like a bar of soap, and Italy then punt the ball downfield. But typical Italy, before they actually do the punt, they decide to play in their own 22. Luckily, they didn't drop the ball. They punted down. Scotland then decide to change their entire front row at the same time. Has an immediate payoff for them because they win a scrum penalty. Healy makes it 8-5 from the tee, and Scotland are back in front. Italy then have a period of possession, but they can't penetrate that Scotland line. Basically, they're on the edge of the 22, and they just can't get beyond that. Ferguson then gets over the ball, and he wins a penalty. Italy then look to attack inside the 22 again, but it felt like Ioane and Pani, they were out wide, but instead of creating space for each other, they basically both converged on each other and took away each other's space, and that made it easier for Scotland to defend that. And it kind of felt like some of the players, like Pani was obviously on debut. Ioane was didn't play in the Six Nations because he was with the Melbourne Rebels, and it felt like not having game time together maybe affected that there, and there were other effects as well. I felt in other parts of their game as well with that. From there, then Scotland, they managed to punt the ball downfield, and Graham, he puts on a lot of pressure, and right on the Italian line, charges down a kick. The ball squirts over the dead ball line, but it ends up being a 5-metre scrum to Scotland. And from here, then Darcy Graham, he picks a lovely line, and basically he comes back against the grain as Scotland look to spread it from the scrum. And it looked like they were going to send the ball wide, but his line, he just comes back, as said, against the grain, and just goes straight over, dives over to score his second and Scotland's second of the game. Healy converts this one. It's 15-6. It was a very clever move from Scotland. Nice to see a bit of variation there, and also nice to see that they actually had a set move rather than kind of looking basically relying on the brilliance of someone like Finn Russell. With somebody else there at 10, obviously they've got to look for something different and have some kind of set plays, and that was good to see. Italy then win a penalty for Scotland not rolling away. It's straight in front, but decide they're going to kick it to the corner. Allen almost kicks it dead, but just about keeps it the right side of the flag. Ruta manages to claim the line out, and then they set up a maul, but that goes nowhere. They then go with some tight carries, get themselves into the shadow of the post, and spread it quickly out to the left, and Ioane goes over in the corner. Allen converts from the touchline, and it's 15-13, and they are back within touching distance of Scotland. Italy, they're then coming again, they're looking dangerous on attack, but Scotland once again deploy that choke tackle and they turn the ball over. And at this point, it has that feeling of next score could be very crucial for the final result. Scotland win a penalty at the scrum, and then they get themselves into the Italian 22, and we have another scrum there. They win another penalty, and once again, it feels like Scotland are on top in this scrum. Healy pops over the penalty for 18-13, just to put a little bit of distance between the two teams. Italy then they win a free kick. There's a bit of back chat from one of the Scotland players, gets upgraded to a penalty. They kick it into the 22, and it feels like this is a great chance for them to potentially either draw, get back level, or with a conversion to actually go back ahead. But the line out isn't straight, and it feels like Italy do this a lot. They make errors when the kind of pressure comes on where they need to produce, where they've worked their way back into a game, and they have a really good chance to actually get themselves ahead. More often than not, they're making errors. That's something that they're going to have to get out of their game before the Rugby World Cup. From there, then Scotland, from at the scrum, absolutely destroy Italy. They win a penalty, and it feels like that's probably going to be it, with just a couple of minutes left on the clock. They decide to go up the line, and it feels like all they've got to do basically is just run down the last couple of minutes and they've got to win. But they decide they want more than that, and they set up attack. First they go up the left, and then they switch it all the way back over to right. Bayliss is out on the wing there, actually puts in a nice step for a forward, and he goes over in the corner to score. Right at the death, Healy then converts from out wide, and it's 25-13, and that is our final score. Now let's have a look at the stats from the game. So starting off with just kind of general stats. So Scotland 3 tries to 1. They really did feel like they had a little bit more penetration when they got into the 22, and they still had a couple of chances where they would have felt like they should have done better, but a decent conversion rate from them. Italy, as I said, kind of found it difficult when they got in position, apart from this one that they scored, to actually convert their chances. In terms of penalty kicks, then 2 each, kicking percentage 80-100. But I felt like, from the tee, the couple of penalties that Healy got were at crucial times where Scotland just needed that little bit of breathing room to, to make it, just put an extra bit of pressure on to Italy and make it so that they had to go for tries rather than taking penalties. On attack then, possession was 55-45 for the first half and 44-56 for the second half. And even though like Italy had more possession in the second half, it felt like Scotland were on top for more of it. And I think a lot of that is because Italy still do that thing of playing in their own 22 in their own half. So even though they're in possession of the ball, Scotland are able to apply that pressure for the territory. 52 to 48 in the first half and 40 to 60% in the second half. Clean breaks 5 to 4, defenders beaten 20 to 5. So, Scotland just that a little bit more dangerous when they've got possession. Offload 6 to 8. Rucks percentage 95 to 94. And mauls 83 to 62. Scotland's maul just that little bit better on the day. Turnovers conceded 20 to 12. Like Italy, getting a lot of turnover ball, but not really being able to do that much with it. Meters run then 274 to 391. Italy making a lot of meters, but a lot of it in their own half. Kicks from hand 19 to 14. I felt like Scotland's kicking game was the better of the two. Italy did go for some long kicks, but it felt like it wasn't kind of a joined up tactic from them, that they didn't have chaser. It was just a case of somebody would see space and kick, and not always having somebody in place to actually put pressure on. They did have a few of fly hacks down the field that helped them a lot. Passes 158 to 164 and runs 91 to 113. So you can see that Italy keeping the ball in hand a little bit more. Possession then 49 to 51. So we saw from earlier that it switched from half to half, but ended up pretty close. Territory 46 to 54, but again, Scotland just doing more with their territory. Set piece in the scrums, Scotland went 6 from 7 and Italy 5 from 9. As I said, Scotland were on top for most of the game. There was a period where it was kind of, in the middle of the game where it was going backwards and forwards, but Scotland started really well and finished really well in the scrum. Line out, Scotland went 15 from 16 and Italy 12 from 15. So overall pretty decent from both of them, but Italy would have liked to have maybe hit their man one more time, especially with that one where they had the chance. That was the one that really, cost them, where it wasn't straight. In terms of then defence, Scotland tackling at 90% to Italy's 86. And again, that Scottish defence, at key times as well in the game, helped them out and stopped Italy getting ahead at crucial points. Discipline then, one free kick each conceded, and then penalties 10 for Scotland, 11 for Italy. It felt like, Scotland again made more of their penalties than Italy did, but I think it was more the follow-up from Italy when they got in position really that cost them. In terms of then the teams overall, I felt like for Scotland, Dart had a great game. So did actually Ferguson beside him in the back row. And Scotland, they've got a lot of talent there in the back row, but it's going to be, these games are about finding the back row that is going to be able to get them wins against South Africa or Ireland, or possibly against both. And the back row is probably going to be key there, getting the right personnel in there that are going to work well together as a unit. But Darge really put his hand up in that respect there. I felt Stafford McDowell had a decent game as well on his debut. Obviously, beside Chris Harris as well, that was good. He was good too. But you have Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, who had both had an excellent Six Nations and those as a combination as well. So, although these guys put their hand up, they're going to have to do a lot more to put pressure on them. And it's probably going to be performances in the Rugby World Cup, if both get there, that will, possibly enable them to get over ahead of them. Because I think at this stage, Jones and Tuipulotu is probably the nailed-on starting centres combination, barring injury, for the Rugby World Cup. For Italy, actually before I say that, Ben Healy was excellent as well, starting at 10. Again, very different to Finn Russell, but what he does well, his kicking game and that ability, he can run the back line, nowhere near as well as Finn Russell, but what he does well, he does really well, and that distance he has on the kick could be vital in the Rugby World Cup too. But for Italy then, I thought Ioane coming back into the team gave them a bit of threat out on the wing. Bruno, at times he was good, but other times he kind of was going up blind alleys as well and getting himself isolated. Thought Pani at fullback maybe needs a little bit more time in international rugby. Menoncello was excellent in in the centres, and like that guy is going to be a star of the future. Whether he's going to be a star in the Rugby World Cup, he probably is going to start some of the games at centre, but I think the centre positions, there's a lot of players vying for those. I thought Rutsa did well playing in the back row, but the second row wasn't that great for them today. So maybe as more players come back into the team, he's probably going to be, with Canone there in the second row. That's probably going to be the partnership there for the Rugby World Cup. But I felt like for both teams, there certainly were positives. Italy, though, they got to work on that whole thing of when the pressure comes on to deliver, they've got to start delivering, because otherwise it's going to be a case of what if in the Rugby World Cup. It's already going to be a hard task for them to get out of their pool. And, as an improving team, they want to be putting pressure on the favourites to get out of the pool rather than being the targets for the lesser nations in the pool for a possible upset. For Scotland, a lot of players did put their hands up today, and now it's on to the starters who are going to come back in for other games to show why they are ahead of them in the pecking order.